Training philosophy for me personally has grown ever since I was young, in the fact that when we talk about training and training philosophies, it starts at a young age when we're talking about athletics, high school athletics, and then collegiate athletics, and you talk about professional athletes, and then you talk about what we do here at the police department. So researching training and its philosophy has always been something of interest to me. There's always been good coaches, there's always been good trainers, and those people make a huge impact on people's lives. So as we start to talk about philosophies, we start to talk about how many man hours are put into a professional athlete, how many man hours are put into that high school athlete, and it's something that we view as very important, and we here at the Fargo Police Department also believe that it is very important. The difference is that high school athlete might train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 2 hours at a night, and then they get to test their skill on Friday night. A professional athlete gets to watch film all day. They get to then go practice that skill, and they know on Sunday at noon the game's going to begin. For us, as a training philosophy, we're always training for the unknown. We're training, but we never know when the event is coming. Carson Wentz, he knows that on Sunday at noon his game is going to start, so he can watch film, he can prepare a certain set of skills for a certain team that he's going to be going up against. When we consider what we have to go up against, we don't know. We never know. It could be a particular person of a particular age, of a particular size, of a particular skill, and we don't know any of that going in. We also don't get to control the environment that we get to test this skill inside of. And we don't know if we're just going to be playing in a game or if it's going to be the big game of life and death type of situation. So at the police department, what we do with our training strategies is we provide monthly training for our officers. We're one of the very few places that provides monthly training for our officers, and we think that that's really important. As an agency, we always wish that we could provide more training, but we also have to balance our call load and our service to our citizens as we're working through our training events. Now, those athletes, they don't have to worry about taking a break and going and taking a shoplifter or going and conducting a traffic stop or looking for a missing person that could ultimately take up their entire day, which for them, they wouldn't get to practice. And again, for us, we also wouldn't get to train. Some of them can be life or death events where we use firearms or defensive tactics type training. And then there are other events that we train for too that are related to search and seizure, or they're related to just a policy or procedure. Again, very important to us, but they aren't that big game, that life or death game that many times we are training for. Sometimes people think that police officers overreact in certain situations. You know, we can all Monday morning quarterback, to use our sports analogy, and that's true. It could be looked at that way. But when you consider all of the details that an officer has to run through in a very, very short period of time, you might be able to understand that philosophy a little bit. We're able to go to that level where we are in a life or death situation, and we have to consider what force to use, whether it's basic force all the way up to deadly force. And in a matter of seconds, we can come all the way back down and be right back in as we assess the situation every second as every detail comes about. Again, to kind of put this maybe a little bit more in a different perspective too, is mixed martial arts is a really popular sport right now, and people are training for that. They're training regularly, thousands and thousands of repetitions on a daily basis. They know that their fight is going to come up in 6 weeks, so they put together a group of experts that help them put together a camp to train for that fight that's going to happen to them in 6 weeks. They know their opponent, so now they can watch film on their opponent. They can train for that opponent's specific skill set and what they're really, really good at. They can do this day in, day out for hours upon hours a day, knowing that this fight is going to happen on this date, at this time, and in this facility. If we put this into the police realm, we train monthly, but we don't get to spend all of our time training, waiting for that event to happen. We get to spend a small amount of time training and the rest of the time going out and going to those calls for service. So as we work our way through those details, it's very, very different because we have to pick up on little things very quickly, assess that situation, and then go back to our training and go back into whichever mode that it is, depending on what we are facing as we are looking at this situation as a whole. That fighter, when he steps into the ring, he knows that there are rules, there are things that are going to keep him safe. He knows that there is a referee. He also has his team that could stop if it went too far or they felt like an athlete was going to get hurt. Ours is polar opposite. There is no referee. This could happen in the middle of the night, the middle of the day, in a back alley by myself without anybody else, and there's nobody there to stop it. So as I assess a situation or a person, We are looking for cues. We are looking for the things that are going to hurt us. And so many times even people see that an unarmed person, why did force get used on that unarmed person? That unarmed person might present quite a different set of skills depending on the officer's size, skills, or backgrounds as well, or the condition that they're in. This could be at 2 o'clock in the morning in a back alley someplace and they're by themselves, and their backup, the only other people that can help them might be 5 minutes away. In a fight, that's a long time. So this unarmed person that's standing there, as we assess that situation, there again are a lot of things specifically that we are looking for and that we train for, but again, it's dark, it's not well lit. Now I can't see the hands very well. A coat or something that they're wearing might be hiding some of that, or even though they might not have something in their hands at that time, if they don't keep their hands where I can see them, it makes it very, very difficult to make really good decisions when we don't have a lot of information. And of course, as officers, we want information all the time. We're always asking lots of questions and we're very inquisitive. And as you can imagine, sometimes in these types of situations too, people don't always listen to our direction and they're not always answering our questions as we're experiencing these things. So we try to recreate those things in a training environment. But many times we have a couple of hours to go through training. We have to set that training up. We have to get volunteers to come in and help us, all the while our peers are out taking calls for service. It ends up being very, very difficult for our people because we can't recreate that back alley feeling at 2 o'clock in the morning where our life is on the line. Yes, we can make it very difficult. We can raise people's heart rates. We can use simunition, which are all great tools in trying to replicate that, but it's not always an exact replication of the environment that we're going to go in. So using those sports analogies, that high school athlete, he gets to test his skill every Friday night in front of fans and people cheering him on. There's breaks in there where he can reassess, he can go back out, he can get coached up a little bit. In our situation, many times they're evolving so fast and unfolding right in front of our eyes, there isn't really the ability to slow things down and go ask somebody else's opinion as to whether I should go right or left or raise my hands up or down. Sometimes people expect perfection from police officers, and we expect perfection from ourselves. And when we talk about training and we talk about elite levels, many times people think of military or the Navy SEALs. And when you consider those groups, they also have training accidents. Things happen inside of training, then they come back to policy procedure, they go back, they look at it, they take it apart, they put it back together, and then they go forward looking at that event as a learning tool. And that's something that we do here as well at the Fargo Police Department. We take each event that happens to us out on the street, and then we can turn that back into a training event for people. So whether that's on paper with a whiteboard exercise where we'll, at shift briefing, go over with a group of people and say, hey, this is the scenario, what are we going to do? Where do we start? And we start taking this very large scenario and we start taking small bits and pieces of it, helping our officers understand each of their roles inside of that. Law enforcement is very different in that every single day that mission changes. And during that, we could be on one mission, a shoplifter, a car crash, and in the next minute that could change into an active threat situation at the mall or at a school. And we have to quickly shift gears and change roles and go into our training and find those maps that we've created in training. So what I'm describing when I say a map that we've created in training, we want to train something with frequency and consistency. By training frequency and consistency, we will be able to create a roadmap in that officer's mind as they encounter that situation. So when they encounter that situation again out on the street or at some other place, they are quickly going through that map in their mind and able to then act on those things that they've learned in training versus they've never experienced that before. They don't know what to do, which is why decision-based training is really important for us as an agency too. We can train a lot, and we do train a lot as an agency, but we also have to test that. And unfortunately for us in the law enforcement field, that test is normally in a room that has pads and has a pad person and has soft batons or soft tools or inert tools such as inert pepper spray. But then when we're out in the field, all of that is live. We can't control the environment, we can't control the pace, we can't take breaks. So we're always training for those events to happen. We just don't know when they're going to happen, which makes it very, very difficult for us as a whole to train for something very, very specific when we don't know when it's going to happen. So we cover a lot of ground in our training. We train on defensive tactics regularly, we train on firearms, we train on rifles, we train on handguns. We also train on search and seizure. We train on traffic stops. There are so many things that we encompass on a day-to-day basis that many people don't actually realize. They see us out there, they wave when we drive by, they see us stopping by and talking to some kids or maybe shooting some hoops, which is fantastic, but they also don't realize that many times that minute we drive away, that turns into something where we don't know. It's an unknown for us that we're going into. And when we compare that high school athlete, that professional athlete, and the mixed martial artist or that person at that elite status that we're talking about in athletics, they know what they're going into. They know when they're going into it, and they know their opponent. Where for us, we don't know who that is, what that person looks like, or how that situation is going to unfold in front of us until we get there, and we have to quickly work through that. And the best chance that we have with that is to create that in training. We use a simulator, so we try to simulate some of those things. It's something that reacts to the different things that we do. We use people, but again, people make an interesting thing when we're talking about training because everybody handles things differently. We're always recruiting from the human race at the Fargo Police Department, so we're all human. We can make mistakes, and we make mistakes a lot in training. And that's what's really important to us, is that we make those mistakes, we learn from them, we grow from them so that we get better, so that when we walk outside those doors, we're better prepared to handle the situations that we're faced with on a day-to-day basis.